Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wisdom of Friends podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. This is a podcast where you get to learn more about your friends and community, their wisdom, their trials and tribulations, timeless insights, and their secrets. Now, let's get into the show. Please welcome your host, Cal Arras.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wisdom of Friends podcast. Today we have with us an exciting guest. I'm really thrilled to have her on this call. Her name is Missie Berteotti. As some of you probably know her, she's the winner of the LPGA Championship Ping Welsh Classic in 1996. And today she is a golf instructor, a very well-known, nationally recognized golf instructor. In her golf academy, she talks about her training and trusting on how to achieve peak performance. At the underlying core of all her coaching today is the focus of the fundamental principles of her mental mastery program. She's also an advocate for women. She conducts business golf academies for women and also coaching them and on achieving and maintaining financial balance in their lives. As I said, during her 14-year career, she's won over $1 million by winning the Ping Welsh Classic in 1996. In 2012, she was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Pittsburgh Youth Golf Foundation. In August of 2013, she was named as the first ever women's varsity golf coach at the prestigious Carnegie Mellon University. In the November 2013 issue of Golf Digest magazine, Missie was rated as one of the top teachers in the country and in the state of Pennsylvania. Her daily schedule involves balancing and blending her golf instruction, working as a financial representative for the Luttner Financial Group. She's also a practitioner of Iyengar Yoga. And today we're going to dig into her rituals, her practices, and her moment when she won the championship tournament in 1996, and the influences she's had all the way from her childhood up until today, and her plans for teaching younger adults and taking on golf and how to really mentally be prepared to be successful in today's day and age. So it's going to be a fascinating interview. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So without further ado, let's welcome the one and only Missie Berteotti. Hey, good morning, Michelle. Welcome to the Wisdom of Friends podcast. We are so excited to have you on the call. I remember the first time that I met you, it was at the leadership conference back in Cleveland, Ohio, almost 15 years ago. And
Wow.
One of the things that really stood out for me when I first met you was just your presence. I mean, I instantly knew that either you were a champion athlete or you were either a professional corporate executive working for a Fortune 500 company, but there was something about the way you just walked into the room, your presence, and it was just something that really stuck with me as a first impression. And I'm really excited, and having known you over the years, it's been such a privilege and an honor to have learned a little bit more about you and your background and your accomplishments, and it is such a fascinating story that you have, and that's why I really wanted you to be on this interview call so that we could capture some of your insights and share it with the audience of the Wisdom of Friends podcast. So with that, thank you for taking the time to be on this call, and
Yes.
welcome to the Wisdom of Friends podcast, Missie.
Thank you so much, Kaushal. I feel that's pretty special. I feel that's really sweet, everything you said, and that makes me feel really great that I do, show up that way. So I hope that's always the case. That's what I strive for. So let's get into it.
Okay, great. So the first thing that we normally do with our interviews is the first question for our guest is, what's your favorite quote or philosophy that you live by, and how have you applied it to your life?
That's a great question. I recently, a couple of years ago, I have a childhood friend. He and I grew up together on the golf course. And he came back into town into Pittsburgh, and he was going to stay with me for a few days and do some business. But I was out of town. So I said, just go into my house and I'll be there, the next day, and I'll see you and we'll hang out the following day. So he got into my house, and I have all these little signs hanging all over that I don't even recognize as abnormal, Kaushal. It's just if I have a thought, I'll put it on the kitchen table. My son and I live there, and my partner and I, my girlfriend and I live there. So the three of us. And I'd like to think our house truly is I look at it as a sanctuary. I feel like it's where we reconvene after a day out with people, out with in our field of, performance, where we try to excel, whatever we're doing. I like to think of it, our house, we get to come home, relax, be with each other, let down, and just replenish our minds, our bodies, but for sure our minds. I'd say we're all pretty good at replenishing our bodies. I mean, we as a household. I wish America was the same way, to be honest. I don't think America's very good at taking care of their bodies, but that's a whole nother topic. But anyway, my friend, he called me I was on the road. He said, what in the heck? He started reciting a couple of my signs around the house, and he started laughing. He said, Berteotti, this is so you. He said, I have to tell you, I feel great just from being in here. So as much as he was teasing me, and it might even be kind of whatever it is, odd, he said, I love it. I just love it. But one of the signs that I've had in my house forever, and it's right above my treadmill, and we have a treadmill down in the basement, and it says, success is moving from one failure to the other without any loss of enthusiasm.
That is such a great quote. Yes.
Isn't it? It takes a lot of everything, courage and inner strength to keep moving from one failure to the next without any loss of enthusiasm. So I do love that. I think that's one of my all-time favorites.
That is so great. So one of the questions that I'm always been curious about is, what did your parents do, and how did that shape your life growing up and to become the kind of person you have become today?
Yeah. You talked to me a little bit prior to this interview, and you mentioned that we might talk a little bit about my parents. So I get this question a lot, and I just rethought it again. But here's what I would say, as succinctly as I can. They were opposites. So my father was kind of a swashbuckling, he was Italian. He was kind of little domineering, little male chauvinistic Italian. He gambled on the golf course. He played with his friends. That was his thing to do with his buddies. He liked to gamble for money. He was he took risk. He loved it. He loved having action on the line. He loved poking against his buddies, teasing them, playing all those types of gamesmanship. And he was a self-employed businessman. He owned a restaurant. He owned a couple pieces of property. He was in the insurance business for a while. So he had the influence on me, I think, for sure as a competitor. For sure I wasn't afraid to go after it and gamble. For sure when I made my first dollars, he had me invest my money. I mean, that wasn't even an option. He's very self-motivated, self-initiating. He came from a very, very humble, modest means. His father was a laborer, first-generation Italian immigrant. So I think I developed that from my dad. The competitiveness, like the enthusiasm on the golf course. They're like, let's get this on. Let's go for it. And the self-entrepreneur, that type of this self-responsibility. Now, on the other hand, my mother was much more, I would call her prudent. She was my mom you can count on no matter what. My mother does what needs to be done. She shows up. She never misses a detail. She is precise with the house, the cleaning. She also worked in the school as a secretary. She raised 3 children. I was the oldest. She was very practical. She did not take risks. She was kind of nervous at golf tournaments, but she got things done. She did not. And if I messed up, if I didn't do my chores before we could go to the swimming pool in the summers, we weren't going to the swimming pool. It was just as simple as that. So I've thought of this a lot. I'm 53 years old right now, and my only child is a son, and he's 18, just graduated from college this week, in fact. So I've thought a lot about what values I wanted to pass on to my son. And I think I really lucked out. I really got the best of both of my mom and dad.
That's so great. Thank you for sharing. And sounds like your parents had a tremendous influence on you growing up, like the resilience, the competitiveness from your parents, and I think that's played a great part in how you raised your wonderful kid, Sam. And congratulations on his graduation, by the way. That's such exciting news and accomplishment.
Thank you so much. This phone call, this interview comes at a unique time. Like, I really feel like I'm at a transition time at life. Sam's moving on. He's moving out of the house. And now what is next for me? Now I have kind of a varied background. I've been a golf professional my whole life. In golf, I've been a competitor. I've been a teacher forever. I've been a mental coach. I love that. I've created a whole mental mastery program, a 6-week program for my students. I've written a book on it. I've done speaking engagements on that for years. I also kind of at the same time interwoven became a yoga teacher during Sam's early years, studied the body, how best to move, how efficient to practice, all that optimal performance. And also of late, I've been involved with a financial firm. I have my finance background. He wants me to help his female clients, coach them for financial education. So when Sam is about to leave, of all my past backgrounds, I'm going to do a little bit of merging here. I'm going to blend more into coaching my female students and clients in the financial realm, as well as a bit of coaching, but it's going to be a big departure for me. I just think, like I said, at age 53, just some physical injuries. It's tough teaching every day, being outside, teaching golf every day. I really want to use whatever influence I have, to help people. I love being in the service industry. I'm so lucky to have credibility in the golf world. That's just seems to always be there. And it's such a privilege. In the financial world, it's less apparent that I have that background, but I've been fortunate as a single mother my whole life to be able to be around and raise my son and enjoy all of his sports, be there, spectate, because I was financially savvy, on the ball. I planned. So I feel like I can really do some add value in this arena for women. It seems like my life has evolved to always being an advocate, whether it's for junior golfers to female golfers. Now it's almost just for females in the workplace, golf-wise and financially. So I'm really excited. I'm nervous. I'm excited. I'm going to miss my son, but I do know it's time. Logically, I know he's ready. He's mature. I'm ready to watch him. And I think it will be a good time for me to really have some uninterrupted time again. It's been, 19 years of only focusing on him. So that's enough. He's ready.
That's so great. And I'm sure you've trained him well, and he's going to go on and achieve lots of success and make you proud as a son and for you as a mother. I want to take a step back here and, really curious about, you won the 1996 Ping Classic LPGA Championship. That's such a big deal. It's probably, I don't know what percentage of people even get to play competitive golf and then actually winning it on the world's biggest stage. I mean, that's such a achievement. And what I'm curious about is, what was your journey like from your childhood up until now, in the sense that did you always know that you always wanted to play golf, or how did the love of golf come about for you?
Yes. that's another question I do get often, and I will say this succinctly. It's so funny, actually, so ironic. As a golf coach, as a mother, half of my time is spent thinking, how can I get to this kid? How can I motivate him? How can I touch him? What do I need to do to get him fired up, or her? You know, I teach both boys and girls. I'm always thinking that way. And how I was fired up, I asked my father, I think around 8, 10, or 11, my mother would take us children, the three of us, I was the oldest, to the swimming pool, which was adjacent to the golf course. And we'd have to stay in the swimming pool with my mom as kids. And there was a big fence around the swimming pool. And my dad never came to the pool with us. He played golf, which was outside of the swimming area. And I could see him sometimes. And I wanted to play golf with my dad. And I said, can I golf with you, Dad? And I do. I still remember this, Kaushal. He said, honey, you're not good enough. And this is the game I play with my guy friends. You're not good enough. And I just started practicing in the front yard, hitting plastic balls with my neighbors. We taped the balls up to make the balls fly further. We hit balls over the roofs of the house. We got in trouble. We did all that. We later started biking down to this little par 3 local course. And that was always my motivation. I need to get good enough to play with my dad and his friends. That was it.
That is so great. I mean, it's, what this tells me is that, somebody at that age could have heard their dad say that you're not good enough and could have taken it in a whole other way and gotten depressed or went back into their shell. But you didn't do that. You stepped outside and you really took on this as a challenge to become really good at this. And it's such a fascinating competitiveness that it's a strength of yours that I've noticed over the years. And that's such a valuable thing. And I'm sure your students that you teach today get instilled with the same drive and desire to excel at the highest levels. Now, going back to your childhood, whom did you idolize growing up? Who were your mentors? And what fascinated you about them?
That is a great question. I will say this age, this generation, my son, they are on their phone. They're on YouTube. They are on Google. I can't say I had a big idol. I watched sports with my dad, baseball and football, which I don't watch that much now. I just want to hang around with my dad and mom. But I would just really, I truly would just have to say my parents. And you know what I have said at times, Kaushal? My teammates, my idols were my buddies that I played with on the golf course every day. I can't really, there 3 of those guys, we had about a foursome or a fivesome every day. And they're all boys and me. And they were who I strove to be like. Now, of course, I watched Jack Nicklaus and those guys, and we imitated them occasionally. But I don't think we were media influenced at that age. My immediate world was in my little street, in my neighborhood, and the guys I played with, and my family and my parents. That was it. I watched my son. He can recite 200 names of the most famous tennis pros. He's into tennis. But I didn't know that. I was into me, my game, and my competitors. That was it.
That's so great. Going back to that 1996 moment, that's such a fascinating accomplishment of your career. Can you tell us a little bit more about what was the preparation like towards that winning the tournament, and what were certain things that fell in place for you that really, really made the difference, or was the X factor for you to winning that championship?
Yeah, another unique question. I was the type of competitor that I came from a work ethic background. That's the only thing I knew. I know the reason I wrote that book and coached these young students I teach in what I term mental mastery, not mental toughness, but mental mastery. I know the reason I do that is because I didn't know any other way to be. I know now how you need to try less a little bit, let go of perfectionism, distinct from training hard. There's a time when you just have to trust and just let it alone and be okay with that. And I wasn't very good at that throughout my career. Never heard of those principles until really late in my career. So that's a lot of the subject matter that I talk about to my kids. So interestingly enough, with that said, the week of the Ping Welches, it was in Boston, I had, at that point, that was about my 7th year into being on the tour, and I still hadn't won. And I had come close, and people had their career rounds to nip me out in the final round to take my victory, from me. And so I kept coming. So I went to see my sports psychologist, who was Bob Rotella, and I visited with him, and he said, the lesson was, this is the hardest lesson for me to receive. You look good, go pick a target and swing. No thoughts, just let it go. And I hated that. I felt like I pay all this money to fly out all the way over here across the country to see you, to get a lesson, and you're telling me I look good. Like I wanted something to work on, to suffer with, to struggle with. That's where I came from as a player. But for some reason that week, I believed him. I believed that I was, good enough. My swing was good. My everything was good. My mental state. So I signed up for the Ping Welches Classic at the last minute, and I flew in. I had no preparation. I missed the practice round. I rented a hotel. I told the woman I was supposed to stay with, I'm not staying with you. I wanted to be alone. I just had a sense I needed to rest. And I stayed by myself alone in the hotel room, and I read the book, Caution, on Arthur Ashe. I had my hands on it for a while. It was on my to-do list, but I just read that autobiography of him, and I never got to the course hardly on time because I was so immersed in that book for 3 or 4 days. I just hit a few shots. I loosened up, and I played. I didn't overanalyze my game. I never practiced after the round. I just read my book and I played and I won the damn tournament.
Wow.
Yeah, that is a true story. I truly do think, honestly, I mean, if you want to take a spiritual look at this, I think it was a message or a sign or something. Everything came together for me, and I was just inspired by the life of Arthur Ashe. He was unbelievable. And I just trusted myself, and I listened to my golf coach's sports psychologist lesson, and then I kind of, my eyes opened. I said, oh my gosh, I've been grinding so hard, and I've always had it. I just needed to believe it. So it was a great week. It came in my 7th year, and I happened to be dating a guy at that point, and I had my son shortly thereafter. And my career kind of ended a couple years later. I was really involved with, dating and marriage and impending having children, starting a family. And it was like I won. I did it. I knew what I needed to do or how to do it to win. And then I got into a different aspect of my life, and I've really never gone back since then. So I wish I could have, believe me, as a competitor, I think every competitor I've ever met, I don't care how good they are, we all think we should have done better. I think my career was okay. There's a part of me, depending on what side of me you ask, I think I was very underachiever. And then there's a part of me that really appreciates how far I got and what I achieved. But I just needed to learn some things earlier. That's why it's been really satisfying to me to have the coaching experiences and conversations I've had with these kids I've taught, because it's an unusual conversation. Not many people are qualified to talk about those matters. And they're really important matters about not just your golf game, but absolutely about your life. So I really loved being in that arena with all my players. And believe me, it becomes very personal. You get really attached to them, their families, their parents. My son was right alongside of all those coaching sessions, playing golf with us. So the friendships and the community we developed, inside these life lessons, I really am. I sound like I almost cry, but I'm forever grateful.
That is fantastic. Two questions come out of your sharing just now. One is, it seems obvious to me, just listening to you share, is that there was something about being in a flow state when you won that championship. It's like everything just naturally kind of took its own course, and you were apparently at your best when you won that. And secondly, the second question that comes out of it is, you said you were reading the biography of Arthur Ashe. Were there any specific one or two lessons that stuck with you when you read that book that really has made a profound difference in your life today?
Yeah. Unique, I guess, ironically, there weren't any particular lessons about like the flow state or any how-tos in that book. I think just his grace. I think that's the only word I can say. Just his dignity, his grace with how he lived as a human being. And then, of course, as a competitor, but also later in his life when he was having all his health challenges. Simply that. And the inner courage that he had and the quiet confidence that he had. I mean, I say simply that, but that's huge. So that's huge. It was, I have that book on my coffee table in my living room. And so that's the lessons I took from his book. The flow state that I played with that week, those were ideas I had been talking about and learning from specific golf coaches for quite a few years. And it just finally, I just decided, or I just committed to it. I pulled the trigger very committedly and very freely that week with no regard for, or concern for failure, or, I was committed, and that was the difference. I was in a playoff. I had a 5-hole playoff and beat Dottie Pepper.
That's so great.
So that was me.
Yeah. I want to talk to you a little bit about your coaching practice. I know you worked with Dr. Rick Jensen, and you've written a book on mental mastery. Could you share something a little bit more about the coaching program and what exactly is mental mastery, and how is that different from some of the other coaching practices out there?
Okay. As I said, I worked with Bob Rotella when I was on tour, and he worked with many male and female golf professionals, very, very world-renowned. But then it wasn't until, so I knew all of his point of views, or a lot of it, and it helped me to a great extent when I was out on tour. When I retired from tour, I started coaching more kids, and I kept going for more training to be a better coach. And I took all that training from Dr. Rick Jensen, who's also another sports psychologist of tennis, and a lot of golf also. And his thoughts came from a different arena than Bob's. So I just felt like it really rounded out my knowledge of how to be a competitor. And I so wish I would have had both, just had that frame of reference and that perspective. But, I just came a little late. So I would say the book, The Mental Mastery, is a combination of all those sports psychologists. I worked with Deborah Graham also when I was on tour. She's been around a lot. Like all the golf coaches. I can't even begin to list them all the yoga teachers, many, many great practitioners, seminar leaders I went to. So that book was a culmination of all of that learning that I had. And I felt like it was my job to make that book so simple, like really simple. I didn't need neuroscience classes I had taken, everything. But, I don't want a 12-year-old to read about neuroscience. I wanted him to be able to read it with the paperback and then go out to the golf course and have applicable drills that he could do with his golf club in his hand. And tennis players, we had so many other athletes take our program, and just right then and there do it and get some results right then. So I think I achieved that. I know I achieved that, and I saw so many great experiences happen from all my players. And just, I would say, the main philosophy of that book, if I had to just say a sentence, it's how to train specifically, the optimal way of training, and then very distinct from that, how to trust, and specific ways of how to practice trusting, not just the conversation, Like little Billy's mom always says, just go trust yourself, Billy. Go play great. How do you do that? So I told that to little Billy, how this is what you do. And we had exercises to practice it. And so that how to train, how to trust, and the clincher or a big key piece of that, fear. I talked about fear in that book. So when fear shows up, how that gets in your way of training very precisely, being present while you train, and how that fear doesn't allow you to trust very well. So just those three things, how to deal with fear, how to train correctly, and trust correctly. That's what the book's about.
That's so great. Sounds like you really use that platform to distill all the wisdom that you gained over the years from your golf pro career, and making it simpler and easier for the younger generation and kids to really use it and be more practical with it, that they can go and apply it on the golf course right away. So that's such a fantastic project to take on. Missie, I'm curious about is what's your definition of success, and how would you define greatness?
Gosh, so I can remember you and I, oh my gosh, maybe 15 years ago at least, having conversations about this. And I remember when you gave your opinions on this topic, I thought, wow, I liked what he said. You opened my eyes to a few things, many things, Gosh.
Well, thank you.
You've been great. You've been a great friend to me. I thank you for, before we end this call, make sure I state this. We have really bounced a lot off of each other, and I have so benefited from your openness, your willingness, your constant accepting where you are and owning your strengths and your greatnesses that you have now, and bridging that with always seeing the gap of where else you wanted to be. So not making yourself wrong for where you are now, and not being disappointed for where you are now, accepting that, like I said, acknowledging that, enjoying that, appreciating that, but always your quest, your thirst for knowledge, hunger. We've shared that, and you've fueled me. So that's definitely an accurate representation of how I feel about our relationship and you.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And I feel exactly the same way about you. I've always been inspired by you, and for me, you're once a champion, always is a champion, and that's how I look up to you. And so, thank you for saying that. So the question I have for you is about what stops people, in your opinion, having worked with all the kids and on the golf course and having coached so many individuals over the years. What do you think, in your opinion, stops people from achieving their fullest potential?
Okay. Well, just to back up, I was admiring you and giving you a compliment. So the last question about what is the definition, I would say, I distinctly remember our conversation, achievement balanced with satisfaction. And I know you and I have discussed it. So there's so many, honestly, and what was a great lesson for me is over the years, I saw a lot of people achieve some great things, athletes, but I didn't think they were very satisfied in their lives. And that was confusing for me for a while. So that's what I would say my definition. And that just kind of flows right into this next question you said, what keeps them from achieving? I think really, really being honest with yourself and answering the satisfaction part of that equation. I think so many people go after what is considered, quote, success, or, and they just blindly, with all a single pursuit, go after it. And they're not happy. They're not aware of, really what they want. And they're not willing to ask somebody, what do you think? And I think you asked me, to expand on that, what could help get rid of that thing that gets in the way from the success, which I just said is satisfaction, acknowledgement, like self-honesty. Mm-hmm. I think a thing that could really, really help is asking other people, like, what do you see about me? I mean, one of the psychologists I had in the sporting world ask me, I want you to go ask 10 of your lady golfers that know you well. And they know me very well. They know how we respond after a double bogey. They know everything. Ask them, and they had a pretty thorough form that the psychologist said to me and said, ask them these questions. And I couldn't do that. I wasn't willing to have those conversations with competitors or even coaches, but I would advise that to a young athlete now, because you just, along with your skills, if you know yourself better and know where you interfere with yourself, your skills can shine. But if you keep, it's not knowing how to operate yourself, how to respond, how to be there, you can't even let your skills out. And I had no clue what point of view I came from as a competitor. I just worked. So, that probably is a regret. I would have loved to have seen how far I could have gotten as a golf player with that self-awareness. And I just didn't know I didn't have it. That's as simple as that until too late in my career, I guess.
Yeah. Do you think your practice of Iyengar yoga has helped you in building that self-awareness practice? And would you recommend people practice yoga?
Absolutely. It's funny how we learn these lessons in life. I won my golf tournament 2 years later, 2.5 years later, I was married. So I was living this totally different life, totally different focus. And so I started doing yoga then and then I had my son, and then we got divorced right away. So it was boom, boom, boom. And when I got divorced, my son was not even 1 year old yet. I had one surgery on my shoulder that had been nagging me for years on the tour. And also I had hip surgery too, so I should say. So I just needed to, start something, a type of practice from the bottom up, gentle. So I went to yoga, and that, talk about self-awareness, that I was just talking about a moment ago, and seeing how you operate in a totally foreign environment for me. I really saw how I didn't do things, didn't pay attention, worked too hard. Yoga is all about watching yourself, releasing into the moment, being in the moment, breathing while you're there, letting go. I had never heard of those things, like I said. So it was such a great time for me with an infant at home. I feel like it was such a peaceful first 5 years. I did so much for 5 years, immersed myself, not just in the practice of yoga, but in the study of it, the yoga journals, the texts, all that, the Ayurvedic medicine. I loved it. It was it really did open my eyes to a lot. I can't get into it all now, but that started my, inner self-awareness. And now when I play golf, I practice so less now compared to back then, but I play almost as well because I'm just so better about knowing where I am, where my body is, what I'm doing mentally. And it's kind of sad. Like I said, I couldn't have learned that earlier, but I think that's life. I think that's life. And I think I learned it just as I was supposed to learn it. That's just, I'm okay with accepting all of that. So it had its reason that it took me that long to learn it. And I'm proud I did learn it. Most people, I think, do not ever.
Yes. So if I had to ask you this question, Missie, if you could go back in time and talk to your 20-year-old, what advice would you give her?
I think kind of the flavor of what we were just discussing. Relax, honey. It's going to be okay. Relax. Take a step or two back. Sit down and ask a couple key people in your life what they see are your strengths and what they see are your weaknesses, and actually trust them and actually be willing to listen to them and believe them instead of thinking that you know everything. That's what I'd say to myself.
That is such a great answer. Thank you for sharing that. Missie, we're going to get into the next section of our Wisdom of Friends podcast here. It's called the Rapid Fire Round. And I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and you just have a few seconds to answer that. Of course, you can elaborate on it if you choose to, but it's going to be like a rapid fire. So are you ready, Missy?
I am ready.
All right. So the first question, what rock star has impressed you growing up?
I don't go to a whole lot of concerts. I don't know why. Oh my gosh! For some reason, Diana Ross is popping into my head. That might have been my era, but I thought her songs were inspiring. But I don't know.
Okay. If you could be successful in another profession, which would you choose?
That's so funny. I just said what I said because I would love to be a singer or a piano player. I would love that. A backup singer.
Oh, wow.
I would love that.
That's so great. I didn't know that about you, Missy, that singer and piano writer. That's so great.
Yeah.
What color describes you best?
I think light blue. Light blue. Calm. It's calm. It's just presence.
Okay. Do you believe in magic?
Absolutely. It depends how you define it. I'd say I would define magic as love, openness, transformation, willingness. Absolutely. I believe in those things.
Well, the next question is, if God exists, can she be trusted?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And the final rapid fire round question for you is, if you could have any message of your choice on a billboard, what would that be?
Be kind. Be kind to one another. Take a minute. Just take a moment and make eye contact and smile to one another.
That's so beautiful. That's really inspiring. So we are heading to the final section of this podcast interview, and I just have a few more questions before we wrap it up. So one question I do have for you is, what's your current passion project, and what are you looking forward to in the next 6 months?
I love studying. I've studied this whole type of how to condition your body, all these different experts with physical therapy. I love that. So I've studied a lot of that. But I want to, right now, currently I'm studying my financial exams, all my higher certifications in the financial world. I just feel like this age, I'm more of a woman of a little bit more stature. I just mean maturity, just a certain stages of life have happened to me. Childhood, I've raised children, I've gotten married, I've had a career, I've had a professional career. I'll never not be a golf coach, and I'll always do some of it, like I said. But I feel like this next phase, I want to be more an advocate for women, close to my age, and help them manage an area of life that I talked a teeny bit about, but just our finances and our health so much affect our everything, our performances, our relationships. So I think finances is not talked about a lot, and it's probably boring. And most, quote, finance coaches or financial representatives or analysts are probably, I hate to say this, they're stereotyped, but it's boring. It's Chinese. It's very foreign to a lot of people. They don't understand it. So I think just the way I can have a connection with my students and the way I've learned to communicate over the years, I think I can convey these financial lessons to them and really impact their lives in a positive way. And I think I'm really looking forward to shifting a little bit in this direction this next decade or longer.
The next question is, what are 3 things you're grateful for in life today?
My love. I really have quality people and friends. Like I said, my girlfriend, my partner, I think we've been together 10 years, and we connect on a way that's really precious. And it's had its challenges, but I'm so glad I didn't turn my back on that connection and that love. A different type of love with my son. Oh my gosh, that's just an unbelievable experience in my life. The love I have received from my parents. Oh shoot, I'm crying. I've been really fortunate. I have great friends. I have to say, I really love my friends. Such quality people. I've been so fortunate.
Wow. Wow, that's very, very inspiring, Missie. I want to acknowledge you for a splendid career that you've had, and not only that. I mean, what I really find such an inspiration about you is your willingness and your ability to take all of that wisdom that you've learned the hard way, and with all that growing up and practicing on the golf course and winning, and all that wisdom that you have taken and distilled it into an easy to follow format for the younger generation and younger kids, so they can take on that newfound wisdom and apply it to their own life, and not only become good golfers, but become good individuals and good global citizens of the world. And I think for me, when I look at your career, your work that you've done in your life, I mean, that's your legacy of leaving these kids more inspired and better able to handle the challenges, not only on the golf course, but even in life. And it's you've been an inspiration not only to me, but countless other people that have met you, have got to know more about you. So thank you for being you, Missie.
Gosh, well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Right back at you.
Well, I have one final question for you, and that is, why do you think people should listen to the wisdom of friends?
I think because I know you, and I know what you're going to do is quality work. And my motto on my mental mastery book, one of the mottos in there was, when you're learning, you're living. And I believe that life is about learning. And I know whoever you have these interviews with and the type of questions that I've already experienced, this is such great learning. So if an individual just wants to get a broader perspective of, who they are in the world and what does matter, and how can I get there? And oh my gosh, you have so much to learn. So I would seek out the best resources I can to learn and to apply it to myself. And I love watching autobiographies on TV or biographies. I love it. And I love listening. I listen to books a lot on tape. So I hope I'm doing exactly what you said. I've had some, stirred a thought with some people in this interview. And if I haven't, here's what I'll tell you, Kosh, I'm kidding. If I haven't, which is the worst case scenario, I'm sitting here in my car by myself. I have a golf lesson starting in 10 minutes after this interview. I scheduled this. I am in such a better mood right now than before I started this interview. So I know I'm fired up to go out and, I have the next 6 hours I'm going to be out there teaching. So I know where I am so I can help these students. So I feel pretty good about what you got here with your work, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It's my pleasure. I know this was going to be a fascinating conversation, and we might have to get you back for round 2 because you have so much wonderful things to share. So again, thank you so much for your time and candid answers. I really appreciated our conversation. And for those of us listening, with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Koshal.
Thanks for listening to the Wisdom of Friends show with Cal Arras. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, theglobalcontribution.com. To your friends and colleagues, be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous episodes. This has been a Seven Symphonies production. Join us next time for another edition of the Wisdom of Friends.